wizard, Harry.
What's up, wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs? It's time once again to hop on the Hogwarts Express and go back to school. Welcome back to Potter Watch, a podcast within a podcast where the Fantasy Files and friends go through the entire Harry Potter series, book by book and movie by movie. Today it's just us. We are your magical co-hosts, Spencer and Sam, and we'll be discussing Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix in depth, and we'll also be spoiling the entire series. So if you haven't read or watched the whole series, then you may want to do that first. But before we get going, check the description for links to our socials like Twitter and Discord, and a link to our Patreon where you can watch these episodes live as we record them. And with that, we have so much to discuss. This is the biggest book in the Harry Potter series, so we got to get going. We're going to get right into the episode, guys. Sam, thank you for joining me. Gabe was sadly sick today. He's got the virus that shall not be named. Kind of a bummer. But we put this episode off a couple weeks ago because you were busy, and then
Son was sick, yeah.
Yeah, and then this week Gabe is gone, and I was like, we can't push it out again. We gotta just go. I've reread this book twice now for this podcast. I'm like, we gotta just do it. I'm not rereading it a third time. So yeah, longest book in the Harry Potter series. Sam, what were your thoughts, especially coming from a movie only background?
I don't know. This book was, I don't want to say insufferable, but it was slightly insufferable to get through. I think getting through are the key words there, is that I really was forcing myself to get through this one. The one thing I'll say is that I felt like this book finally gave me enough that when I picked up, I started the movie series on Order of the Phoenix, and I was actually able to, for the first time ever, finish the full series and understand everything that was happening. So I will give it that.
Well, what exactly are you saying? Like this led you perfectly into the movie? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like before, anytime, I think it was once I got to Order of the Phoenix as just a movie watcher, I had trouble comprehending what the hell was going on. And the plot line and the minutia of like what was moving this story along. And this book finally made it so that once I watched the movie version, I knew enough that I finished the whole rest of the movie series understanding the actual plot lines for the first time.
Yes, Sam. I was going to bring this up because I was watching Order of the Phoenix, the movie, just over the past couple days. And when I was watching it, I was like, oh yeah, I think the adaptation is actually a really good one, but watching the movie, there were several parts where I was like, this would only make sense if you've already also read the book. Like, I forget what scene it was, but I remember I was standing in my kitchen doing dishes and watching the TV, and there was some like skip between scenes where in the book there's a lot that happens that kind of gets you to that point, and in the movie it just goes from one to the other, and I'm like, if I hadn't read the book, like the only reason I understand the skip in the scene is because I know that in the book Hermione goes downstairs and she tells Harry this thing, and that makes them all go back upstairs and find out this other thing, but in the movie it was just like bam bam. And I think it worked as an adaptation for people who had already read the book. If you hadn't read the book, I don't know how you would have really understood what was going on. And there was a big thing in the making of this movie where they were like, how do we take, like, it is the biggest Harry Potter book. You can't really see it on my shelf too well, but it's like twice the size of some of the other books. Like even the last two books are not as long as Order of the Phoenix. And it's like, yeah, I can't imagine how difficult it was to boil all of that down into a 2.5 hour movie. But yeah, there's definitely scenes in the movie where I'm like, it only makes sense if you've also read the book along with it, which I think a lot of people were doing at the time. But then there's also the crowd that's like only watching
Yep.
the movies, and then those people go on to be the ones that are like, Harry Potter's fine. Like, if you've only seen the movies, like, I could understand how you'd be like, Harry Potter's fine. Like, it's not like that great, this great thing. Um, but reading the books, you get so much more context. You get so much more just like information in general. Um, do you, so why was the book insufferable for you?
So it was like insufferable. I guess just I think it's difficult when you're someone who comes from the movies first and they're a little young. You know what I mean? Like the books are a little young in a lot of ways. And so like as an adult reading it for the first time, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, like let's get to it. Come on, like let's
Mm,
get going. And I mean, I definitely loved in like the Half-Blood Prince was the first one where I felt like I actually gained real information from reading the books, especially with the whole plot twist at the end. Not plot twist, but like the explanation for what had been going on. Uh,
right.
so the last book was the first time that I was like, oh, I'm glad I read the book. Like I'm glad because now things made sense. And I felt the same way this time. And I totally understand Harry's like angst through the whole book,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just a little annoying. It was just a
Yeah,
little annoying.
because in the movie, I don't think. I mean, you see Harry struggle with Voldemort inside his mind at the end there with Dumbledore, where he's like, "You like weak old man" or whatever, and like Voldemort's like talking through Harry, but it doesn't explain that the reason why Harry has been so on edge this entire movie or this entire like um segment in the series is that like Voldemort's emotions are like directly flowing through Harry the entire time.
Mhm.
Um, and if you were only watching the movie, I don't think you would really pick up on those details, whereas the book explains it pretty clearly later on.
Mhm. Well, that's like the whole like crux of it is, why Dumbledore was staying away from him and
Hmm.
all of that kind of stuff. And I definitely got like in the beginning, like if I was Harry and like my friends were together and they'd written me these very like bland letters that
Yeah,
didn't tell me anything, and here I am at the Dursleys miserable, and I feel like I've been left behind essentially. Yeah, I would be moody too. It's just not
yeah,
that fun to read about.
yeah. It's not fun to read about, and I think there was a lot of fluff in this book. Like there was a lot of things that like probably could have been cut. Um,
I think the movie
and
did a good job, trimming
yeah,
that fat.
yeah, I really didn't mind the movie at all. And I think I often get labeled as the person that's like, I need the adaptation to be exactly like the book. Um, and I mean, fair in some cases. I do talk about that kind of stuff a lot, but in this case, I really didn't mind like the stuff that they cut. Like it made sense. The things they cut made sense for how long the book is and how short the movie needed to be. And I think it got all of the major plot points. Um, is there scenes that I would have loved to have seen in the movie, like Molly with the Bogart and all of her like children and family dying? That was so sad in the book. It was like, oh, I finally understand why Molly has been so protective the past few chapters. Um, and so that would have been great to see in the movie, but I think for the most part the movie did a really good job with what they had to work with, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, it's not like it's a TV series where you can really like flesh all of these plot lines out.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have 9, 10 episodes to do it. So I definitely understand why they have to like trim the fat for certain things. Um, yeah, I thought it was pretty true to the book for the most part. And things
Yeah.
that they had cut out from the previous one made sense why they were now cut out from this movie because they didn't give it to us in the last
Mm-hmm.
one. So they're not going to give us, what's her name? Weepy? Uh,
Uh, what is her name? Winky.
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 I always
Yeah.
want to call her, what's her name from whatever. But yeah, they didn't include her in any of the movies so far, so they can't include her in this one.
Yep. Matter of fact, there was a thing, I had this down in my fun facts, but they were going to take out Creature from the movies. And at the time that they were making this movie, they didn't have the seventh book yet. Matter of fact, Rowling was writing it at the time that this movie was being shot or written. And so they were going to take out Creature, but Rowling prodded the filmmakers to include him, saying, I wouldn't cut him if I were you. You can, but if you get to make a seventh film, you'll be tied in knots. And Creature was added back into the script for the movies, which I thought was kind of funny. It was kind of like, you can take him out, but you're going to be kicking yourself when the seventh movie comes around. And they're like, oh, okay.
Oh, we needed this person.
Right, yeah. Is like, yeah, you can't just go like hacking away like random characters. And I'm glad that she had such a presence in the writing of these movies and stuff, because she was kind of able to be like, yeah, I guess you could get rid of this character and like do the plot line a different way or something, and kind of was able to maneuver around that a bit. Um, so for me, there was several characters that were infuriating this whole book. Harry was one of them. He was insufferable for the first like half of the book, and he's got a reason to be insufferable. Like he's got like the whole Horcrux thing going on, and like Voldemort working through him and everything.
Well, and nobody believes him. He's got the Daily Prophet coming out and saying that he's a crackpot and whatnot. That was probably the most infuriating part for
Mhm.
me, just being like, imagine like knowing Voldemort's back and you've got the whole world, or at least this like major news source saying like, no, he's crazy. That's not true.
Right. Yeah, that and like it just like we'll talk about Umbridge in detail in a
Yeah,
minute,
yeah.
but yeah, all of his like interactions with Umbridge, it's like I understand why she is making you angry, but everyone is telling you to shut up. Like everybody's telling you to like settle down, let it roll off your back, like just don't do anything stupid. And time after time, he just keeps doing stupid thing after stupid thing after stupid thing.
Mhm.
And it's like, dude, just stop. And then, like, of course, the whole occlumency thing, he's like, I don't need to learn occlumency. Like, all of these people that know way more than I do are telling me I need to learn it, but I don't need to learn it. And maybe it's just because it's something that I would have done as a 15-year-old. Like, that's the attitude that I would have had. Like, oh, it just makes me so mad. I'm like, dude, you literally caused like multiple deaths because you wouldn't learn occlumency like people were telling you to.
Or
Um,
where he didn't open the gift from Sirius. That was weird.
yes,
Easily spoken to each other the whole time. I mean,
they could have spoken to each other the entire time if he had just remembered to open the package. But he was too preoccupied with all this other stuff that he thought he knew better than everyone else. Um, and it's just infuriating. And I think in the next book we see him take, he's still Harry, but we see him take a much humbler approach where Dumbledore will be basically explaining everything to him. Like the next book is where we get literally everything. And Dumbledore is like taking him on this tour around the world to all of these magical locations and like showing him things. And Harry, for the most part, is shutting up and taking notes because I think he's learned from Order of the Phoenix, where he's like, the one person that I cared the most about, I killed because I didn't listen to my betters. Um, and so I think we see him change quite a bit in Half-Blood Prince. Hermione is also really insufferable. There's just so many things. I want to make a video. I won't go into it too much here because I want to make a video on Hermione's whole like spew thing and why it's so like deeply problematic. But she even like she's like hiding hats around the castle to like try to get them to like accidentally pick it up and find them and set themselves free and stuff. And there's something that happens in when they're in number 12 Grimold Place where she's like she tells Sirius she's like, why don't you just free Creature? And he's like, if I freed him, it would literally kill him. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't know what to do outside this house. It would be like, not that Hermione wouldn't like me comparing the house elves to dogs, but like imagine just telling your dog, I free you, go into the world
Yeah.
and be free. And it's like your dog wouldn't know what to do outside your house. It would get killed.
Yeah.
Um,
A domesticated animal. You can't just set him free. It's going to do more harm.
right, it's gonna do more harm than good. What's up, Nova?
Hey, Stinky.
Nova and I were playing Enshrouded until very late last night, and we beat the like big boss at the end of the game. And it took us hours, and we were sitting there like screaming at the computer monitors, like defeating like this big dragon. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
And then, yeah, like I said, Molly was infuriating at first, but then it was very sad once we see her with the Bogart,
Mhm.
and like just realizing she's so upset or she's so like protective because her greatest fear is her family dying. And it's like what a great just like wholesome
Mhm.
moment. Yeah, I loved. I mean, it was sad, but I loved seeing that was like that was her greatest fear is like losing everybody that she cares about.
Yeah.
Do you have any other general thoughts before we talk about Umbridge?
Oh no, I'm ready to talk about Umbridge.
Okay, tell me what you think of Umbridge because yeah, I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
I mean, just like insufferable. And I am someone who would definitely struggle with like that type of authority where they like just want to tire you out until they get what they want. And I thought her portrayal in the movie was absolutely amazing. Like I absolutely hated the movie character that played her. Like she did such a phenomenal job of it was like on par with Joffrey from Game of Thrones of
Yes.
making me really freaking hate this character and that little like
Yeah.
laugh that she did
Yep.
made me
Ahem.
want
Ahem.
to claw my eyes out.
Mm-hmm.
Um but I it in a lot of ways it to me had a lot of parallels with like I think things that are currently going on in the world with these people who just want you to shut up and sit down and do what they want even though you know it's not for your own good. And so I really just struggled in a way reading about her because she angered me so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she is easily one of the like most well-written villains I've ever
Mhm.
read. I think she does exactly what she's meant to, which is to make you really mad and just hate her. Um, but she actively brings this book down for me. Like it's like really, really hard to read her scenes just because she's so awful.
Mhm.
Um, and like I Order of the Phoenix is a lot of people's favorite Harry Potter book, and I'm just like I don't know. I just can't. This is like definitely not my favorite um, because it's so hard to read her scenes. Like she's so
Yeah.
actively infuriating on a page by page basis, where it's like really hard to get through her scenes because and I guess that's, you've got a good villain on your hands when you pull that off. But man, and I think so. Umbridge is like the secondary villain. Like, obviously Voldemort and his Death Eaters at the end of the book is like the main villain,
Mhm.
but you've got a good villain on your hands when the secondary one is more memorable and more hated than your main villain, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Rowling got the idea of Professor Umbridge from a teacher that she had back in the day, which I think is funny. I'm like, I can't imagine what going to school with that person must have been like.
Right?
Um, and Dolores, I don't know if it's like in Latin or what, but Dolores, I guess, means sorrow. And Umbridge was a play on words for umbrage, the feeling of like anger or whatever, or
Mhm.
taking umbrage with something.
Yeah.
Um, and Rowling has compared her to being on par with someone like Bellatrix, even though Bellatrix is a little more like wily and cackly and whatever. Bellatrix and Umbridge actually share a lot of the same kind of views and stuff.
Mhm. Umbridge is
Um,
very much someone who wants to control every aspect
mhm.
of people's lives, especially the children at the school, and any sort of pushback is like, "Oh, how dare they? I want what's best for them." And
Right.
no, you don't. You just want to control all of these people for better or for worse.
Yeah, and it's wild when we first see her in that classroom, like she's like, "Oh no, we won't be like actively producing magic. We're just going to be like reading about it." And they're like, "Well, what if somebody tries to attack us?" And she's like, "Who would try to attack you?" And it's like, even if Harry hadn't said Voldemort, there could be any number of situations where you are attacked on the roads going somewhere. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
And just
and I was
her playing it off as like, who's going to attack a child is just so, oh my God, it makes me so mad.
well, and I had a question for you because I don't know if I missed it or if it wasn't explained or it's explained outside of the books. Was so in the beginning when Harry, uses his wand and he's not supposed to, and they try to expel him, and they're like, "No, we're going to have this trial." My question is, do you have to go through all of your schooling to be allowed to use magic whenever you want?
Yep, you have to go through your schooling and you need to be 18.
Okay.
So
You have to be
like,
like certified, essentially licensed.
yeah, exactly. Otherwise, because Hagrid got kicked out in his third year or something, and they
He's got
snap.
his secret one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they snapped his wand, and then Dumbledore. What you'll find out later is that Dumbledore's wand is the only wand that has the ability to repair another wand. And so he repaired Hagrid's wand and kind of put it in this umbrella.
Yeah.
So Hagrid has like his secret wand. But yeah, so technically Hagrid like shouldn't have a wand. Like he shouldn't be allowed to use magic because he
Yeah.
didn't finish. And then we see like Fred and George, and they've just turned 18, and so they're using like magic around the house and all this stuff. Um, and so I think it's either or. Either you get to 18 without getting your wand confiscated, or you finish all
Okay.
your learning and everything.
Okay.
But yeah, talking about her authority complex, I was watching this video last night that I took some notes from. She felt overlooked during her time at Hogwarts. She never gained any positions of leadership like prefect or anything like that. Uh, she immediately went and worked her way up in the ministry. And her father was a wizard, and her mom was a muggle. And she disowned her mom and she went and lived with her dad, who was a janitor at the Ministry of Magic. And she convinced him to retire from the ministry, and she just like pays him like a monthly stipend for
Mhm.
his bills and stuff because she was embarrassed that her dad was like a janitor at the ministry. And so then she like kept like going up the ranks and everything, and she was trying to marry for status, but nobody ever wanted to marry her. So
Shocker.
yeah, shocker. So she never married, and she just kept trying to like climb up and up and up. That's the only thing she cared about.
Mhm.
She has an extreme hate for muggles that even worried. She has an extreme hate for muggles that even worried non-muggle friendly people. So, like other people like Lucius Malfoy and stuff, her hate for muggles was even looked down on from people like that, which is pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
Um, she was the one that sent the Dementors at the beginning of the book.
Mhm.
And this isn't the last that we see of Dolores Umbridge. She goes on to be cruel to Muggleborns like Hermione, locking them up in Azkaban, saying that they have stolen their wands and their magic, taking Slytherin ideals to the extreme. And she does get a just punishment in the end, which is really nice. I did really love the scene where she goes to the centaurs and she's like saying, like, you near intelligent whatever, and they're like near intelligent, and they like just scoop her back into their like into their like tribe, and she
But they
just
don't
like goes
kill
off
her,
screaming.
though.
What's
Yeah, they
that?
don't kill her.
Yeah.
She shows up later, which is very annoying.
Yeah,
I
it
want
was very annoying. I had forgotten that she pops up again later. But Dumbledore does go into the forest and retrieve her. And it's like, I wonder why he did that. I wonder why he didn't just let her be like tortured out there.
yeah, it really did not make any sense to me.
Yeah,
But also, isn't she not pureblood as well? So, like, by her own definition,
right.
she shouldn't. Is that what it is? You just like hate yourself so much that you're not pureblood. So,
Maybe I think yeah, I think she just had like some like real hate for muggles, and which is weird because she is one. And we kind of see this with Voldemort too. Like he's a half-blood as well. And he's, basically persecuting all these people that are not full-blood um wizards.
well, in question, do I have this right? Harry's mother was born to Muggle parents,
Hmm.
right? So while both of Harry's parents were magical, his lineage still has non-Muggle blood or Muggle blood in his lineage.
Correct, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
so he's half blood basically. Okay, so we had some questions last time from Goblet of Fire. I don't know if you remember some of these, but Katie has been commenting on a lot of our videos, and she has some great answers to some of the questions that we had. These are all from Goblet of Fire. She says, during the graveyard scene, when those that Voldemort killed with his wand are coming out of it, we only see the most recent ones because Harry breaks the spell by running to the cup after his dad comes out. If he'd waited longer, then more people Voldemort had killed would have come out of the wand. Once Voldemort's body was destroyed and he became a spirit, he lost the ability to use his wand, so he's only been killing again recently once Wormtail brought him back into a rudimentary body. So that kind of that kind of explains like what's going on there. She also mentioned regarding how Voldemort went from spirit to having the body of a baby. J.K. Rowling has said previously that when she explained to her editor how Wormtail brought Voldemort back into a rudimentary body, her editor looked like she was going to vomit. It's been theorized in the fandom that either Bertha was pregnant when they kidnapped her, or Wormtail impregnated her, and then Voldemort possessed the baby's body. Really dark stuff. Also, I think the fact that her name is Bertha, Birth, is significant. Bet you didn't need to know that today, did you?
I did not need to know that. Ugh.
I think
It's
it's funny. I think it's funny that J.K. Rowling was like, "Yeah, when I explained this to my editor, she looked like she wanted to vomit."
I get it. I get
Yeah,
it.
that's pretty
Lots
wild.
explained. Oof, dear
Yeah.
God.
Last time we also talked about Moaning Myrtle being kind of weird for like snooping on all of the prefects when they're bathing and stuff. And I had asked, is Moaning Myrtle playing by Edward Cullen rules, where she's just like this age forever? And Katie says, Myrtle is creepy, but because she's a ghost, she is permanently a 15-year-old girl, so not a child predator in that sense. Ghosts don't grow up, they stay in the mental state they died in forever. Ghosts lead a sad existence in Harry Potter. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
How do
And
you
then,
just not grow mental? I mean, I guess.
right?
I mean, the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, okay. If you think about people who maybe have like disabilities, and their growth stops at a certain age and like
Sure.
that's all they can do, that's how I can make it make sense to myself.
Well, I think what she's getting at is that being a ghost in Harry Potter is like a snapshot of the mentality you're in when you die. And it
And how
just
you would have handled it at that age in that
right,
moment.
right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I can get behind that
right.
then. But still, like, Jesus, if I had
I
died
know.
at 16 to be stuck in that mentality, oh
Could
my
you
God,
imagine?
I
Oh
would
my
have cried
God.
all the time too.
Right. Yeah.
Ugh, it would have been so bad.
Yeah. Um, so then she talks about Spew, and she says, I think the main part of the Spew plot is to show how activism can be done wrong. Hermione doesn't ask the house elves what they want and assumes for them, putting a human perspective on their lives. Also, I think house elves are based on brownies, which are household spirits or hobgoblins from Scottish folklore that are said to come out at night while the owners of the house are asleep and perform various chores and farming tasks. The human owners of the house must leave a bowl of milk or cream or some other offering for the brownie, usually by the hearth. Brownies are described as easily offended, are always either naked or dressed in rags, and if a person attempts to present a brownie with clothing, it will leave forever. So I think it's obvious J.K. Rowling drew inspiration from brownies when creating house elves. I think house elves have a symbiotic relationship with wizards and they enjoy cooking and cleaning. I think most are treated well, but we get bad examples from how the Malfoys and Barty Crouch treat them. I think Hermione is right that they need more protections from people like that, but she doesn't understand that freeing them is actually cruel.
That's I like that. I like
Yeah,
that explanation. And I think I even said in the last or the episode where we had the whole spew discussion, I said it would be like me showing up to a Black Lives Matter event and saying,
right,
"No, this is what you need." Like, who the hell am I to come in and tell? You know what I mean? It was
right.
just to be like your intentions were good, but you lost the plot.
Yeah, right,
Yeah,
exactly.
this is not your matter to speak on in that
Right.
sense. So I agree. I think that's a really good, very interesting explanation. The whole time you were saying it, I thought of Keebler elves.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. She does have a recommendation for you. She says, as Sam mentioned, she likes cults. She might enjoy J.K. Rowling's latest book in her Cormoran Strike series. I would recommend reading the whole series because they're amazing, but the latest one is about one of the main characters going undercover in a cult. Definitely the best one so far. It's incredible.
I haven't even heard of that, so I'm looking it up as we speak on my phone.
Nice.
Rowling. That's really great. I didn't know she had like a whole nother
Yeah,
series. I think it's all been shadowed by
you're right.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
We also had questions about like what was going on with the other schools coming to Hogwarts. Like is there like, are they staying at Hogwarts or are they staying somewhere else? Are they doing their schooling, all that stuff? And Katie says, it explains in the book that only the potential champions come to Hogwarts from the foreign schools, not the entire year, because we see each of them enter their names into the Goblet of Fire. We see them going back to their ship or carriage, where it can be assumed that they are getting their schooling, because what else would they be doing all year? And then she says, oh, I had asked, like, why didn't we see blast-ended Scroots in Hogwarts Legacy? And she says the reason blast-ended Scroots aren't in Hogwarts Legacy is because Hagrid illegally bred them in 1994 when this book is set, so they didn't exist back then.
Okay.
Yeah. And then that's all the main points of stuff we had talked about. But I wanted to bring that up because she gave like two extremely long and detailed comments answering a lot of our questions. So I wanted to shout that out.
Well, no, like Katie, is that what you said her name
Yeah,
was?
Katie.
Shout out Katie, because instead of being like, oh, you're wrong in this way because of this and that, and I'm going to make you feel bad, you gave very educated answers, and I'm very appreciative of that, because that really helped, clear away some of the questions that I had, and that's rare.
Yeah, for sure. I think, really good
like,
comments.
Thankful for someone's comment. It was so nice that somebody actually, it's like a full explanation of, oh, hey, like, this is why that was that way.
Right. Yeah, it's nice for a change.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's see. So what did you think of Sirius's death? Did you feel anything, or did you feel like I almost, like, I definitely feel really sad whenever I read Sirius dying. But I also kind of think that Rowling should have given us more, like, time with him.
Yes, and I think the book also showed a little bit more of, like, how, like, Sirius is a flawed character in ways, as opposed to where the movies, it was like, oh my god, he's this amazing person who wrong was only done to him, and Harry should have been able to be with him, and, like, nobody's perfect. Everyone has flaws. But Sirius's death did still kill me, because it absolutely cut off that dream for Harry of, like, I have a family I can go live with, I can be with someone who cares about me. And that was really, really heartbreaking and sad in every way. It got rid of the illusion for Harry that he could go be with Sirius one day.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of always knew it was never going to work out that way. It was never meant to be. It wasn't what was going to happen, but it was still really sad. And I thought the movie did a really good job in portraying it as well, in a way that made me very sad. It was just sad.
Daniel Radcliffe's performance during that scene is, I think, probably his best performance in, like, all of the movies. Just like when, like, Sirius kind of, like, drifts back into the veil, and he did such a good job portraying this. You see it just, like, slowly dawn on his face, like, almost from, like, confusion to, like, wait a minute, to no, and just, like, falling to his knees and screaming. And then to go from that scene directly into the next part of the Ministry of Magic, where Dumbledore is fighting Voldemort, and Voldemort is, like, possessing Harry, like, using him like a puppet. And you weak old man, like, just, like, talking through Harry, and Dumbledore is telling Harry, he's, like, speaking to Harry, he's like, it's not about the things you have in common with Voldemort, it's about the ways that you are different. And it shows, like, this montage of, like, Harry with his friends and with the Weasleys, and, like, all of these good moments that Voldemort would never have. And Radcliffe then speaking to Voldemort and being like, I have the quote somewhere in here, but him being like I feel sad for you. Like, you will never know friendship or love or trust. Like, I feel bad for you. And, like, oh, dude, it's such an amazing scene.
Yeah,
So,
that's like one of the meanest things you could say to someone is essentially like, I pity you. I
yeah,
feel sorry for you that you don't even know what you've missed out on.
right.
To me, that's the ultimate, like, you have no idea. You've never known love, unconditional love, where you're not
Hmm.
expecting something from someone in return. All you know is being this like power hungry person who just wants to make everyone listen to you and do what you say. And to me, that was just, oh, that's exactly what I would say. I
Yep,
pity you. I pity you.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good.
Mm-hmm.
I love that scene, and not to mention all of the like amazing like technical effects and like CG and all the spell work that's going on all around them while this is happening. It was fantastic. I wouldn't be surprised if most of the budget for the movie like went into those scenes because they were just incredible. Like they were
You
just
know what
amazing.
I actually found was really fun is I really love all of like the Lego games. And you know the
Okay.
Lego games have like tons of like movies and worlds and whatnot. And I loved the Harry Potter Lego game. I had all the years,
Oh.
like both of them.
Okay.
And now going through, even though I'd seen the movies, now that I've read the book and rewatched the movies, all of the scenes that they chose to make levels in the Harry Potter Lego game made so much more sense to me.
Oh, okay.
And the Ministry of Magic ones were so much cooler now that I've watched and read all of the scenes for it. But if you haven't played them and you do like the Lego games, I highly suggest the Harry Potter ones. They're very fun.
Okay, I've never played any of the Lego games.
I
Yeah. And so
love
maybe Harry Potter will be the one that I try. Maybe I
you
should
should
do
try it, especially since you liked what do you call it? Which I also loved the Harry
Legacy.
Legacy, which my sister the other day was leaving for vacation. She was like, "Should I download the Harry Potter game?" And I was like, "Are you stupid? You
Yes.
already own it. What do you mean?"
Yeah.
But for someone who is not a extreme gamer in the sense that like I can't do very very hard games, it's just it can be too much for me. A lot of especially like shooting games and all that. I
Yeah.
did really love the Harry Potter Lego games. I loved them.
Okay. I'll have to check it out. Do they get like significantly better as they go on? Like should play some of the later games or
I mean, so when you buy the Harry Potter ones, it comes in like the first 3 years, and then the second. How many years are there?
7?
7. So it's like the first 1 through 3, and then like 4 through 7, or 1 through 4, and then like 5 through 7, something like that. But
Yeah.
each year follows like the plot line of the books. It's really fun.
Nice. Okay, I'll have
Yeah,
to check those out.
yeah. I like the Lego. I love all the Lego games though. So
All right, do you want to go into some fun facts real quick? I found a lot of really cool facts about this one, I think. I think this will be some of our best ones yet. So, a lot of this I pulled from an interview, which is actually linked in the description right now. And it's from BBC Newsnight in 2003. It was right before Order of the Phoenix was coming out. Like, she had already had it, like, printed and everything. It was like on its way out in a matter of days when this interview came out. And it's really incredible. It's really interesting to go back to these early interviews and see like how incredibly condescending these journalists are to J.K. Rowling because she was like a big name at the time, but imagine like mansplaining something to J.K. Rowling in an interview now. Like you would be fired so fast if you treated her like any other way than like worshiping the ground she walks on. Like if you
well, that's like any early 2000s interview I see, where like the way reporters spoke to women. I'm like, I would have lost my effing mind, but you're in this setting where you can't. You have to keep it under control or you'll be an angry woman.
yeah,
God forbid women are angry, or
dude, it
we speak
is
up to our injustices.
yeah, it is baffling to me to see just the way that they talked to this woman in the early, it blows my mind.
He's best-selling
And
author.
yeah, and you can tell it's really sad because you can tell that she's on guard, and you like, and maybe I'm reading too into it. I could totally be doing that. But from my perspective, it looked like it seemed like you could tell that she is a very, very nice person that just had to put up with so much BS that she got like a very cold exterior because of all of the like blatant, like just journalism crap that she had to put up with. And like how like dog eat dog the publishing industry was at the time. Like it really didn't have a lot of place for women in the publishing space. They weren't taken very seriously. And so you can tell that she had to like really get a thick skin. But I think you can also tell that underneath all that, she would be like a very kind person. But it's really sad to see how they treat her in these interviews. It's crazy, actually.
If you had asked me about this, like at that exact moment in time, I would feel so much sympathy for her. But
Hmm.
just based off of who she has turned into these days, it's very much one of those situations where it's like an umbrage where, like, oh, I got mine, so I'm going to shit on everyone below me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's shitting on people below her.
I
I
think
don't
she is.
really.
Yeah, she is very against the trans community and dead
Oh
naming.
yeah.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, okay, I would have felt sympathy for you at this time, but you are now doing to others what has been done to you. So it's very hard for me to, in any way, be sympathetic towards anything for her anymore.
Yeah, I thought you specifically meant like other authors, like other
No,
like
no, I just mean like in general, I could look at this and say, yeah, like they treated you shitty, but here you are treating this whole community shitty as well. You know what I mean? So it's like, well,
yeah,
how can I feel sympathy for you when you've decided it's okay to do it to this whole other community? You know what I mean? It's just
yeah.
I don't I can't feel any sympathy for you at all based off of that. You know, you used your platform once you got as big as you are to just totally undermine a whole community of people. And
Yeah.
it just seems hypocritical to say, oh, well, I feel bad that you got interviewed toughly.
It's fair, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's talk about so there was 3 years between Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix.
Was there really books or movies or both?
In between the books, the movies came out like one by one by one by one
Okay.
because by that point they had like largely caught up to uh everything was kind of in sync at that point.
Got it.
But
Okay.
by the time they started making the movies, so they
It was
already had like a
3 years
lead. What's
between
that?
the books? 3 years?
Yep.
I mean,
And
I guess that's nothing when you think of like what do you call it, Rothfuss and George R. R. Martin. I guess that's a blink in time.
yeah, for sure. But what she was saying in this interview is that during Goblet of Fire, Rowling's publisher was pushing her so hard to finish by this really like unreasonable deadline. She was working like late into the night, and I mean, imagine like how motivated these people are by money. You have like this once in a lifetime best-selling series that is selling unlike anything you've ever seen in your lifetime, and you have this author that you have to kind of crack the whip on to be like, no, you're gonna get this done because this is like a lot of money for everyone. um
It
and
just reminds me of like current day Sarah J. Maas, where like people are like, you need a book out every single year. But then the
right,
book comes out and people want to dissect it so
yeah,
heavily. And it's like, but you were one of the people who were like, no, we need to stick to this timeline instead of, no, I want the author to put out the best book they can, no matter how long it takes.
right.
You
yeah,
have it both ways.
you can't have it both ways. And of course you get into your Patrick Rothfuss situation where he's just not doing anything and it's kind of like, okay. Um, but you know, with something like this, like 3 years isn't that bad. And I
No.
think Goblet of Fire, they made her turn that around in like a year.
Wow.
And
And
she
that's to me my favorite probably. Goblet of Fire is probably my favorite book and movie.
yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. And she was saying that she was so like tired and just like done with having to meet this crazy deadline that she literally fantasized about breaking her own arm so that she literally could not write even if she wanted to, and they wouldn't be able to say anything about it because her arm got broken. And she said that she started thinking of like ways to do it, and like she was saying she was like really close to doing it.
Well,
um
that's sad. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone, regardless of anything, like that's
yeah,
sad that you feel this like pressure. And I can't imagine like writing a book that people feel so freaking passionately about
I know.
that it's like, no, we need this book now.
Can can you imagine like the weight that would be on your shoulders, like,
Oh,
and then on top of that to be mistreated by your publisher? Like the more that I watched this interview and the more that I read like articles and stuff, I'm just like, regardless of how you feel about her now, I probably don't feel as strongly about her as you do, but like regardless of how you feel about her now, it's kind of like, damn, like she was so mistreated. Like it's so crazy to see the things that they got away with in the early 2000s that they would never get away with now. Or maybe they do behind closed doors, but
I think that's actually a very true fact in a way of like a lot of it is behind closed doors now,
mhm.
where it's not like as in our face, where it's just sad that back in the day it could be in our face.
Mhm. Yeah.
And we're like, no, put out the book.
You're
Like,
right. Yeah.
I
Yeah, we
don't
didn't
care
think
about your
anything of it.
mental health. Like, no, give me my book.
Right, right, right. Um So after the whole ordeal with Goblet of Fire, she forced her publisher to let her take 3 years to leisurely write the next book, or else she was just gonna be miserable. And she's like, I'm just not gonna do it. Like because she wanted to pay back her advance. That's what it was. They had given her an advance for Phoenix, and
Mhm.
she says, "Here's your money back." And they're like, "Why are you giving us our money back?" And she's like, "Because I want to write this at my own pace." And they're
Yeah.
like, "No, no, it's okay. Take the money. Take the money." And they're like, "You just write it at whatever pace you need to." And so she decided to take 3 years because she wasn't going to do the whole Goblet of Fire thing again.
At
And
the end
I,
of the day, somebody who's like, no, like I am going to prioritize my mental health over just making money at the end of the day, I can get behind that. Every day I could get behind that, for sure.
right. Yep. For sure. For sure. Um, So then, as the series was already a global phenomenon, the book forged new pre-order records. Are you ready for this? New pre-order records with thousands of people queuing up outside bookstores on June 20th, 2003 at midnight to get their copies. Can you imagine thousands of people wrapped around a bookstore? Like, we will never see anything like this ever again. Ever.
In a
Like,
way, it like makes me think a little bit of the new Sanderson book coming out. And my girlfriend actually texted me the other day and said, "Oh my God, are you getting the book when it comes out in like a week or whenever?" And I went, "Listen, I'm in the middle of a reread for the podcast." I said, "At this point, I am going to continue on my reread. I am not going to grab the book the second it comes out because I'm just going to have to go back and reread anyway." But I can understand that hype of, no,
yeah,
I need this book. And there are plenty of books that I have pre-ordered for the day they come out and
yep,
gone to Barnes and Noble the day that they came
same,
out because I could not wait to get my hands on it.
yep,
And I think if I had gotten into fantasy when I was younger, this would have been a book where I was like, no, I need to be in line. I need this
yeah,
book. like, I need to know what happens next.
Yeah. I wonder what Twilight was like back in the day on those releases. I wonder if it was kind of similar. Probably not to the extent because it was mostly like teenage girls reading it, but it had to have been some pretty big hype.
I mean, teenage girls, I feel like, are the most like notorious fandom for being crazy and like needing things. The second they came out, thankfully, I got into Twilight, I believe, after all the books had come out, so I didn't have to
Yeah.
wait in any way. But if I had to wait, I think, yeah, I think it would have driven me crazy enough to be like, nope, I need to go.
Yep.
I mean, just like the end of Yellow Jacket season 2, I'm like, Jesus Christ, just give me the third season.
I know.
Give
I
it
know. Yeah,
now.
we gotta talk about Yellow
No,
Jackets at
we're
some
gonna
point. It's
save it.
so good.
We get to save it for the hang next week,
Yeah. Yeah,
because
we
I
do.
have so many thoughts, and I know you and I are going to go back and forth on quite a few of them. And I'm ready, Spence. I'm
It's
ready.
so good. It's so good.
But yeah, I mean, you don't really see that these days anymore.
Right. Right.
The wrapping around.
Yeah. It also gets crazy when we start talking about how much money the movie made. Can you pull up numbers for how much the book made on opening weekend? Um, I have another note here. During an interview in 2003, just before the release of Phoenix, Rowling said that she had never heard anyone make a completely accurate guess as to the ending of the series or anything of the final romantic pairings. Which is really interesting because at the time, you don't, I mean, maybe you have like chat rooms and stuff, but you don't have like the way the internet is now, everybody's like theory crafting and like I'm sure there's at least a couple people that have guessed the ending to like the King Killer Chronicles or something, like accurately guessed it. But back then she was saying, after talking to all these fans and hearing from all the people, she had never heard anyone make a completely accurate guess as to the ending of the series. I think that's pretty cool. It's
That
pretty
is
cool.
pretty cool. And you want to know what's pretty cool? How many copies she sold in the first 24 hours?
Oh, what
Spence?
is it?
11 million in the first
Wow.
24 hours. And this was before ebooks.
Yeah.
Like, uh,
This is like
11
just
million.
this is even before like ordering online. This is people going to stores and
Hence the wraparounds, at bookstores. But 11 million in the first 24 hours, you wrote a book that 11 million people purchased.
right. Wow, isn't that crazy? And then times that by with tax maybe $40 a book.
But even just think about like, and then plus the movie.
Yeah, plus the movie. So yeah, that it gets really interesting when we think about the movie. What the movie cost to make was between 75 and 100 million, and within its first 5 days at the box office, made $333 million, more than tripling its initial budget, with 960 million made overall worldwide, tying the box office with Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Could you imagine like almost like getting 10 times the return on your investment for a movie? Like that doesn't happen nowadays.
I mean, I think for me, it wouldn't even be about like the return on investment. It would just be like trying to calm my hubris of like, I wrote something that this many people are interested in knowing how it continues. Like to me, that's just,
Yeah.
uh,
It's
it's just
wild.
phenomenal. It's phenomenal at the end of the day that you can write something, even granted during what time, whatever,
Yeah,
that many people connected to and wanted to know how it continued. And it's just phenomenal.
it's wild.
It's wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 11 million in the first 24 hours.
Yeah. Does it say how much it sold in that first year?
Let's see. It looks like it sold, it says 11 million in the first day, including the overall sales has sold hundreds of millions. That's all it says.
Okay. Yeah, I believe that. Okay, so J.K. Rowling says that if she could have put a stop to all the merchandise, then she would have. She wasn't really happy with a lot of the random merch that Warner Brothers chose to put out, and she was saying that some of it was completely ridiculous. Like she shot down like some crazy stuff. One of the ones that she mentions in the interview is a moaning myrtle toilet seat alarm. So when you lift up the seat, it goes woo or whatever. Like
Okay. Who purchases that?
I don't
Who's
know, but you know what's funny? I'm so glad that she mentioned this because there's a lot of cool Harry Potter merch, but I think something that like turned me off to the series for a long time was seeing all this just like random merch all over the place. And I was like, I remember just like growing up and even in recent years, just being like, is Harry Potter really that big of a thing? Like, it just seems like you have everything just plastered with the name Harry Potter, Harry Potter, Harry Potter, just like all this random stuff. And so it really turned me off to the series for a long time. And now, of course, I kind of look for anything with Harry Potter plastered to it. But I I can understand the feeling from Rowling being like, I wish I could have just put a stop to like 99% of the merchandising. She's like I just wanted to write a fun series. Like I didn't really want it to be this big like, I don't know, corporate thing, which I think is kind of funny because it's definitely gotten way out of control.
I was going to say it's very relevant to today, where I was literally thinking the other day, I forgot what I was watching, and I was like, wow, well, first of all, I had seen Ready Player One, which is one of my favorite movies, and I always think of the scene where the bad guy is trying to set up the world that everyone goes into, the VR world, where he's like, we can put up to 85% advertising into a person's imaging before they'll have like a seizure. And all I
Right.
could think was, this is the world we are living in. I was watching a football game with my husband. That's what it was. And I go, this is more commercials than the actual football game that we are watching. We are watching more commercials than the football game. And I go, we are really living in like the end times, you
Yeah,
know?
it's crazy. It's
We are
really,
living
really wild.
in the end times of capitalism, and we are just inundated nonstop with buy, 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 buy. And I am over it. I am sick of it. I want to be able to watch something without somebody shoving down my throat why I should buy something that like relates to it. And yeah, so
Yeah.
I agree. A moaning myrtle toilet seat alarm. I
Yeah.
mean, Jesus.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Rowling says she cried after killing Sirius Black. She had written it and then she like closed her laptop and went to the kitchen and was like sitting on the floor crying. And her husband came in and he was like, "What's going on? Are you okay?" And she's like, "I just killed like one of my favorite characters." And he said, "Well, you don't have to kill him, just unkill him." And she's like, "No." She's like, I had to kill him. Like I had to kill him for the series to continue the way that it's supposed to and to have the emotional impact that it's meant to have." And so he sat there on the kitchen floor with her while she cried about Sirius Black. And I like that story a lot.
It reminds me very much of George R. R. Martin when he killed off Ned Stark in the end of book one, and people are
Yeah.
like, why?
Yeah.
Never forget his quote where he says, listen, sometimes in history, the good guys die. You know,
Yeah.
like the good guys in history don't always make it in real life. And that has been a very important lesson to me in almost every book I've read since then, where it's like, yeah, this might be your favorite character and they were killed off, but there is almost always a very important reason, and it's a catalyst for what is needed to come.
Right. Right. Yeah. Like it really. It'd be interesting to look at what the death of Sirius does for Harry. It's more of like a tragedy than anything, but I guess it kind of makes him, we see him in books 7 and 8 really have to grow up, and he doesn't have anyone to rely on, especially after, Dumbledore dies in the next book, and he's all on his own, and it really makes him have to stand on his own. Um, and so, that's part of it is, Sirius. It's just, oh man, I love Harry Potter so much just because it is like a tragedy through and through. Like it has a happy ending, but the whole series is just a tragedy. Like, man, I love it. I love it so much.
I love that. I love all of those types of stories where like the protagonist has just been pushed down. Sorry, trying to think of the best PG way to say that.
Sure. Yeah.
Pushed down over and over and over again, and they continue to get back up, and it just makes the win all the more sweeter once you get there.
Right. Yeah, it really does. It makes what otherwise might have been like a fine ending into like a beautiful ending
Yeah,
once you see all of the pain that you had to go through to get there.
yeah,
In this Newsnight interview, Rowling once again shows her giant outline for the series, which really should put to bed the rumors that she was making it up on the fly. There is so many people that say Rowling never had a plan, she made it up as she went, and I'm sure there was stuff that just got like added. She even says there is, like there's stuff that she just like added in as she went along. But there is like a serious portion of the audience that is like, no, Rowling never had like an outline. She never had a plan. And in doing these Potter Watch episodes, every single time we do one of these episodes, I watch an interview from the year that that book came out, and she brings out her giant outline and she says, "This is my outline for the series," and she shows it on camera. You can't like see how the series is going to end or anything, but you can see the outline.
yeah.
And it's like, no, she knew what she was doing. She had a plan. There's a lot more foreshadowing in this series than people think there is, for
Yeah,
sure.
give it some more credit.
Yeah. Death Eaters were once called Knights of Walpurgis, which is kind of like Halloween Walpurgis. It's like the ghost of Walpurgis or the saint of Walpurgis, and I think it's Scottish, and it's like a night that people like a night during the year that people pray to like a ghost or a saint to keep like bad spirits away and stuff. And so I guess they were named Knights of Walpurgis, and then she changed it to Death Eaters because Death Eaters was like the derogatory term for Voldemort's followers that they just kind of adapted. So I thought that was interesting. That was just a little piece of trivia that came up while I was searching.
Interesting.
And then the last fun fact I have here in the Newsnight interview, it's at the very end of it. Rowling said it's funny to see this back in like 2003 because now we know that there haven't been any more Harry Potter books like besides The Cursed Child. Like there isn't like there hasn't been any new like canon Harry Potter like series books. But at the time back in 2003, she said that she's looking forward to leading a more normal and quieter life after Harry Potter is all done. And she's like, I love the series. I'm having a great time with the series, but it is so incredibly stressful for me. And it's like, it's completely like taken over my life. And I can't imagine the weight that this woman was under writing this series. Like, it has to be like even more so than like Game of Thrones or anything like that. It has to be like the series where everybody is on your back waiting for the next book. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
Um,
don't know how you could ever live up to the expectations that come with like the Harry Potter series. It's
right.
just
It's such a phenomenon that it's just like, yeah, I get it. And she was like, she's like, I want to finish Harry Potter, and then I want to be able to, she specifically said that she wants to be able to fail again. She wants to be able to write something without the expectation of it having to be perfect or anything like that. And I can't imagine how many offers she got once she finished Harry Potter. Can you imagine the money that must have rolled in with people saying, I'll pay you millions and millions of dollars to write one more book? You know what I mean?
No, and I mean, she's got her own Universal Studios set
Yeah.
up, and it's just at this point, I feel like I would be like, you know what, I did it. I'm gonna leave on a high. Like, I'm
Yeah.
good. I got
Right?
enough money and residuals coming in for the rest of my life. I mean, there's a new Harry Potter TV show coming out.
Yep.
It's just obviously she wouldn't have known at that time how far it was going to continue and go. But if I were, I think I would have just like been like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm gonna retire now. It's never gonna get better than this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Go out on a high.
Yeah. But when you're an author, who knows, with your hubris and
I
whatnot, it's like,
know.
I gotta keep going.
I know. I know. I kind of wonder if, like, because there was a interview that came out with her like 6 months ago, and she was like, "Yep, I've enjoyed writing my like mystery books, which is the one that Katie recommended earlier." She's like, "I'm just having a good time like making those, and they don't have to be amazing. They're not going to be super bad. They're not going to be like super amazing." But she's like, I just like writing them without all the pressure. And it's
Yeah.
like, hey, you've earned it. But I often wonder if before she dies, is she gonna write another Harry Potter book? Like, will we get one last like trilogy or something? I don't know.
Yeah, something. I mean, the cursed child didn't do it, so
Right, yeah, Cursed Child was awful. She needs to retcon that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's all I got for fun facts. I think those were some good ones. Okay, so let's talk real quick about Dumbledore's big plan, because this is where we start really seeing it come to fruition,
Hmm.
and we start seeing like specific things that Dumbledore is really pushing for. And in the next book, we will get the entire reveal of the plan.
Hmm.
It's the next book where we find out that he has had a plan this whole time, and then it's only on reread that you get to see all these little things that I'm pointing out here.
Hmm.
So part of Dumbledore's big plan was Harry's safety. And we see this early in the book where he sends the Howler to Petunia, and
Hmm.
he's like, "Remember my last." And what he means by that is he's like, "Remember the last time I talked to you and told you that Harry has to stay here, otherwise Voldemort can like attack him and stuff, and this is the only place that he'll be safe." Then we see Petunia change her tune real quick, because Vernon was gonna kick him out. He's like, "You're out of the house. You're leaving all this stuff." And Petunia was like on board with it for a second, and then she gets the Howler, and she's like, "No, no, he's gonna stay here." And so obviously Dumbledore like scares her, like she doesn't want to cross Dumbledore.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, Harry's safety, and then we also see the Order come and fetch him and bring him to number 12 Grimmauld Place, and all that. And then teaching Harry occlumency, which clearly does not go well, but it's part of Dumbledore's plan
Hmm.
to get Harry some buffer between his mind and Voldemort's mind. And obviously this doesn't go well, but it's part of his plan. And then teaching him that the ministry is not to be trusted and to be directly opposed. And this is where we see the bulk of his plan in this book. Because we've said it before, like when Lockhart was chosen as the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, if Dumbledore wanted somebody in that position, he could find someone. He could literally tell anyone in the Order of the Phoenix to be the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. He could have picked Molly Weasley, who ends up killing Bellatrix. She could have been the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. He could have chosen Lupin again. He could have chosen Arthur Weasley, Bill Weasley, Charlie Weasley, like any of those guys. He could have had Tonks do it. Like he has so many choices for Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers. Um, And he chose to have a ministry official. He probably didn't know it was going to be Dolores Umbridge, but he chose to leave it up to the ministry to find someone to fill that position because he wanted to show Harry and the other students that the ministry has their own agenda and that they are not going to be trusted to help with this whole Voldemort situation, because we even see in the next book where there's a new, I forget who it is, but someone takes over for Fudge. There's a new ministry official, whatever his name is, Minister of Magic. Um, and he is soliciting to Harry, going to him and trying to get him to join the ministry and join like his side and be like, yeah, we need you on our team now that we know that Voldemort's back. And what this year does is it teaches Harry that the ministry cannot be trusted, so that by the time the ministry comes calling and is like, yeah, be on our side, Harry's like, screw you, I'm Dumbledore's man, which is exactly what he tells them. He says, I'm Dumbledore's man, get out of here. Like, I don't want anything to do with you. You treated me so bad all last year. None of you believed me. And so it's really important for Dumbledore to show them that the ministry, that they're not necessarily the good guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what we see in this book. I think maybe that's also why Dumbledore goes and collects Umbridge from the forest, is because it was part of his plan to like have someone from the ministry there. And he didn't want anything to fall back on Hogwarts with a ministry official getting killed on their premises.
That's a
Um, but that being said, I don't think he knew that Dolores specifically was going to be the one that they appointed, which went a number of different ways, but all kind of worked out to the benefit of his plan in the end.
mm-hmm.
And then with that, like with kind of in conjunction with having a ministry official at the school, he is also teaching Harry to unite with his fellow students against a greater adversary. Doesn't matter if you're Hufflepuff or Ravenclaw or Slytherin or whatever. There was students of all sorts of different classes in that DA, the Dumbledore's Army meetings. Cho Chang is from Ravenclaw. There was is Ernie Macmillan a Hufflepuff? I forget. There was a couple Hufflepuff people, and so he's teaching Harry to, unite with his fellow students against a greater adversary, which would be Umbridge, and he will later need the same mentality for the school to revolt against Voldemort as a greater adversary. Um, so I thought that was pretty cool. This is really where we start to see the plan kind of crystallize into something a little bit more tangible than, well, Dumbledore wanted to see what Harry's heart was like. He wanted to see what he would do in this situation. Now Dumbledore is actually able to put things into motion where direct progress is being made, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have any thoughts on like, I don't know, just like the DA meetings or anything like that? Was any thoughts that are new compared to when you were seeing the movies or anything?
I don't know. Not really, I don't think. I think they both kind of mirrored each other pretty well, the books
Yeah,
and the movie.
I
Mm-hmm.
think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that we see Neville come out of his shell and he
Yeah.
starts like being better at like battle magic essentially.
Yeah, I think, was it Neville who had the scene where like once Snape was off his back, he was able to like do his potions well.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of like significant in a way where it was like, okay, I think I put in my notes, which were like all the way at the bottom, and I'm not gonna look for it right now. which was just like, not every student needs the same teacher or the same teaching method.
Right.
And what could work for one student doesn't work for another. And so people that you may think or look down on as not as good as you or not as smart and whatnot, maybe they just had the wrong teacher. And I think Neville's a really great example of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of what was keeping him down was fear of, being scrutinized and fear of being, mocked or whatever. And once Harry shows him that, he could teach in like a kind way and in an encouraging way, it really made Neville blossom into what he later becomes. And we even see in the next book, Slughorn takes over for Snape in the potions, and Neville, does Neville become part of the Slug Club? It's either that or Moody from last year, who is actually Barty Crouch, gave him encouragement in his herbology, and that's what makes Neville. Neville later goes on to become an herbologist teacher at Hogwarts, um, and it's Moody kind of taking him under his wing and showing him that herbology is something that he could blossom in. Um, and even though it's weird because it's Barty Crouch under the mask, but he's still doing something good by showing Neville that he's got this in him. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But
I like how where like Harry, when he's like first seeing Slughorn again, is like Slughorn,
yeah,
and he's like, it's weird because like I thought I had this whole relationship with him, but it like wasn't him that I had this or Mad Eye.
right, yeah,
I thought that was really interesting. Just like, oh, I thought I had this like whole relationship with this person, but it wasn't actually this person. And here's the real person still trying to
yeah.
protect me. So I thought that was really interesting.
Wouldn't that be so weird? Like, could you imagine if you found out tomorrow that your husband this entire time had been like this other person
Yeah.
underneath this mask, and then you then meet your like actual husband, and you're like, well, wait, so like, do I catch you up on the past like
Yeah.
15 years or whatever? Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Well, from there, we're going to go into talking about some specific scenes. We won't be able to talk about everything, obviously, but I did scroll down to the bottom to look at your notes. And
So
so,
I first of all do voice to text as I'm doing this because I don't like to like stop what I'm watching as I'm doing it. So
uh,
all of it is like me speaking into my phone and it, translating it. And so it
yeah.
doesn't always accurately. Those things where like you don't realize your accent until like you have to speak into something and it's gonna
Sure.
dictate it for you. So yeah, take them all with a grain of salt because
Okay.
who knows how it grabbed what I was speaking to my phone.
Sure. What is a swamp box?
It was one of the things that the twins made, one of their inventions that they made. It wasn't the one that was like where they vomited and whatnot. It was, I believe it was the fireworks. And then if
Yeah.
Umbridge went and tried to go against the fireworks, it was going to make more of the fireworks.
Yes.
I think that's
Oh,
what the box
let's
was.
talk about their whole exit. That was
Yeah.
so amazing, both in the book and the movie. Um, where they're like, you know what? I don't think we're really cut out for school. And I'm really glad that Rowling decided to put that in the books because some people are just not meant for school. And I mean, that's what I did. I basically skipped my final year of school and I went into construction, and I found really great success as a carpenter. I'm a very, very good carpenter. And so I think people can find the things that they love to do without having to have like a full education. And I even though it was like this big bombastic moment, I think it's so cool that Rowling specifically put that in the book.
Well, to go back to my first line of my notes is I think the twins have ADD
Okay.
and normal schooling is not for everyone. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I think of how, especially when I was looking at college, I graduated in '08. I don't want to say like the big college lie, but I, I didn't need college. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I absolutely did not need college. And that's not to say everyone doesn't need college at all. That I'm just saying that I wish it had not been looked down upon during that time. If you did not decide to go to college, and I had one parent who was very like, you go to college, like this is what you do. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went to college because my mom was like, oh, this is what sounds like what would be good for you. It was
Right.
hospitality, hotel management. And I had already been a bartender server for many, many years. Customer service was absolutely not what I wanted to do for my whole life. Was I good at it? Absolutely. Did I want to do it forever? Absolutely not. Like,
Right.
just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's what you're supposed to do. Like I can put on a face. I know what you're supposed to say in a customer service situation, but did it kill me every time, like inside, that I had to like let something go because the customer is always right?
Right.
I left in junior year. I still owe like just under 30 grand to this day for a education that I will never use.
Right.
And so I think about that a lot in this sense of like, this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
No, no.
Right.
There is no cookie cutter mold setting for everyone. And
Very
it
true.
should be okay to like explore those options without like, oh, you're going against like the grain and what is acceptable and blah, 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 blah. And today I'm an insurance broker, right?
Sure.
Nothing leading up to going to college would have led me to that conclusion. Nothing I did in college really, I mean, it does in a way with customer service, like help in a sense, but I could have saved myself a lot of money that I owe.
Right.
You had just been given time to like, figure it out. Is schooling
Right.
what you want to do? Do you want to be like an educated researcher, person, doctor, whatever, who needs all of that schooling?
Yeah.
I did not. I did not. And I owe a lot of money still to this day because it's so. My joke with that was like the twins have ADD, where it's like they don't need this. They have already shown what they can excel at.
Right.
Why are we not fostering that? Why are we not encouraging that to grow? Instead, we're like, shame on you. You're not fitting into what we have told you is the correct means to become a grown wizard.
Right. Yeah.
They already showed so much smart and common sense as like inventors and business owners,
Yeah.
salesmen, and they just kind of get crapped on. Is that
Right.
a PG way to put it?
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole time as like these two jokesters.
Right. It's like, no, they're like really smart. Like we see them doing all sorts of like product testing and all sorts of stuff all throughout this book, which I think
They're
is kind of funny.
brilliant. They're
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they were living in this time where it was like, nope, you didn't do ABC. So guess what?
Yeah.
We look down on you.
Yeah. You know what's great though is this weekend I finished the Order of the Phoenix movie and I was like, I gotta start Half-Blood Prince. And so I didn't start the book, I started the movie. And one of the first scenes in the movie is Harry and Ron, and I assume Hermione and Ginny, going to their joke shop. And it's such a good scene. I'm like, man, I can't imagine the effects budget that went into this scene alone. It is like beyond like Disney magical. Like it is so cool. And there's like all these like fireworks going off all over the place and like little like toys going zoo, just like flying
Yeah.
around everywhere. And I love this scene where Ron goes up to the twins and he's got some thing. I forget. It's like a piece of candy or something.
Yeah, what's a
And
brother discount?
yeah, he says, how much is this? And they're like 5 galleons. And he's like, how much is it for me? And they're like 5 galleons. And he says, but I'm your brother. And they say, you're right, 10 galleons. And I'm like, that made me laugh so hard.
As someone who has a sibling, my sister has her own business and she'll always try to like give me discounts and stuff. And I'm like, no, like, what is the normal charge? Like, please
Yeah,
give me the normal charge because, like, I am just so proud of you for like running your own business. I am not here for a handout. But
sure.
I found that part so funny because I felt like that was something I would say, like, oh, you're my sister. No, wait, double the price.
Right, yeah. Oh, so good.
It's a creeper, but like I love it. Like Harry got all that money and like gave it to them and said like, no,
Yeah,
like I see what you're trying to do. And like to me, it's a very underrated, wholehearted, just like when Molly says like I look at Harry as a son, to me, like
yes.
Harry saying that about the twins is like the same exact thing.
Right, yeah, they're like his brothers,
They're
like,
like his brothers. Like I no, like I don't need this. Like I
right,
absolutely don't need this. But B, like I'm gonna give this to people who I think other people look down on, but I see their potential. I see what they're getting at.
right, exactly. I do see your note here saying Molly saying Harry was her child. I did just love that moment where somebody says, he's not your child, Molly, and she goes, he's as good as. And oh
I
man,
think we needed that as readers because we all felt that, but
yeah,
we needed it to be told to us. And like, no, we're not as readers like just thinking like Molly and crap. What's the darn? What's
Arthur,
his name? Arthur. We don't think like Molly and Arthur just look at him as like Harry Potter.
right,
No, this is a boy who has dealt with so much trauma his whole life and he just happened to become best friends with our son and maybe he doesn't need us monetary wise but we see how he needs us other than that
right,
what
yeah,
he's missing in his life and so for that to be validated out loud, I mean for us as readers it meant so much, but can you imagine what it meant to Harry
oh yeah,
to
totally,
hear that? And I can understand having that complex of like, oh, well, they're just saying that, like that's what any like no, no, believe it. You are lovable. People can care about you without gaining something from that. And I just found that to be a very powerful, powerful part of the story.
yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
I love
So proud.
everything with the Weasleys has been so amazing. I love any time that he's like at their house or like, uh, I forget which book it is, but in one of them, I think it's the second book when they've flown the car and Mrs. Weasley is getting so mad at like Ron and the twins. And then Harry comes around the corner. She's like screaming at him. And then Harry comes around the corner. She's like, "Oh, hello, Harry!" Like,
It's just so sweet and
yeah,
what you would hope for. And Harry, like I said earlier, like he's annoying this whole book, he's annoying, but
yeah,
I have to constantly remind myself, look at what he's been through. He doesn't have 1/10 of the support system I've had in my life during difficult situations. You know, I lost my dad 7 years ago. That really sucked. That really, really freaking sucked. I
uh,
cannot imagine losing both of my parents at the exact same time at such a young age. And that's what I
yeah,
constantly have to remind myself is like, Sam, you had this many years with your father. You still have your mother. They molded you.
right,
And to at such a young age in such a tragic way, lose your parents. But you've got all like everybody's talking about you and your family and has opinions on these things when they are not directly involved. Can you imagine what that's like?
yeah, for real.
So I try to give him grace. I try to give him grace because I'm like, if I was 16 and this happened to me before and then during and then after, I don't know if I would have handled it as well as Harry.
Yeah. You have a couple notes here that I thought were interesting. You said, I get confused with Snape because he was really trying to protect Harry the whole time, but he's constantly doing mean things to Harry that he doesn't need to do. That confuse me. Is it really just that he's holding a grudge against Harry's mom picking Harry's dad? Um, and I think that's another interesting thing we see in this book is the memories of Snape. And we see that James was not this like at least not while he was in school, he was not this like good guy hero that Harry is. Like he wasn't this kind person. He was a jock, just kind of douchebag. Like he was a bully to Snape. And I totally understand that in high school especially, you're going to have rivalries. Maybe the rivalries don't even really make that much sense and you kind of like pick on each other. But I don't know how you could watch the flashback, Snape's flashback, and think that James was anything other than just like a bully. Like,
Okay, that's what I was hoping you were going to say because I thought you were going to try to like
justify it.
justify it in a way. And like, that was why I had written that voice note at the time where I'm like, he was an effing not nice person.
Yeah.
He was not a nice person. And I get it. I have things I've done in my past where I'm like, I was ignorant, I was stupid, I was a child, I would never say these things. But especially looking at it from Lily's point of view, that
Yeah.
you saw these things, Snape, who was your childhood friend, who was there for you
Yeah.
during all of your hardest moments, and then you just kind of essentially said,
Right.
and you went with the guy who was doing it to him. It was
Yeah.
I couldn't
It's
understand
gotta leave a scar for, lack of better phrasing. Like it's and like I don't think it justifies anything that Snape does, but it is kind of the cycle of like hurt people hurt
for
people.
people.
And it's interesting to watch it throughout the generations. And there's part of me that's like, could you imagine, having this experience with James Potter and then the girl you love that you were also best friends with growing up, not only like kind of disowning you while you're like strung up in a tree, but then also like dating him and marrying him. And then his son that has been blown up into like this extreme like hero figure that is like super popular. I understand the desire to like humble him a little bit, but what he doesn't know is that Harry doesn't really need that much humbling. Like he's not like a super like arrogant person, and it kind of sucks that Snape can't like see that. He can't see that because he just sees like these outward things that Harry does, like, oh, he's the seeker on the Quidditch team, just like his dad. Oh, he's sneaking out of his room at night to go do this thing or like whatever. And so he sees these things from like an objective, like third party view, and he makes assumptions and he treats Harry accordingly. Not only that, but every time, people have told Harry numerous times that 90% of him looks like his dad, and it's only his eyes that look like his mom. And so, from Snape's perspective, he's seeing this kid that looks like his childhood bully. And it's like, yeah, I can understand a little bit of the tension there of like seeing this person, not just like knowing that they're this person's son, but seeing them look exactly like this person and it's gotta be tough. It doesn't excuse anything that Snape does, but I think that the Snape and Harry situation is a lot more complex than people make it out to be sometimes.
In a weird way, reminds me of this like issue I had in college where I had this best guy friend for a very long time. Like the first 2 years at least, we were like best friends. And I introduced him to one of my roommates. And I should have known better because like I loved this roommate, but I knew how she was and like she collected friends. You know what I mean? Like she
Sure.
wanted them to like be on her side. And I will never forget where I came home one day and my door had been kicked in. My door in this like 9 bedroom house that like all of us lived in because they had wanted my cable box out of my bedroom.
What?
I used to share my cable box with the living room because I had like a 900-foot cord, something absolutely insane, right? Like a insanely long cord. Because I
Okay.
was like, listen, I want to watch it in my room, but I want everyone to be able to watch it as well. So like, I will get this really long cord, and we will all be able to. So I came home one day, and I just changed the lock on my door in my bedroom. They had kicked it in. They had kicked it in.
Uh-huh.
And I was really upset because I was like, what the heck, guys? Like I share my TV, like it is what it
Yeah.
is. Like you kicked in my door when I finally got a new lock on it, whatever. And it's so weird. I was just thinking about this like literally a day ago, Spencer, where I was like, it really hurt me that my best guy friend, who had only just become friends with her because I had introduced him to her, was like, well, Sam, you know, there's your truth, her truth, and then there's the real truth. And I was like,
Oh my God.
why would I lie about this?
Right.
I always shared my cable box. It was like this like whole thing, and so like
Yeah.
it's just making me think of that, where it's like, how much can you believe from the person who's telling it to you? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, what's at stake for them? What
Right.
what will this change out of their life? Will this keep them from being mad at you? Because yeah, then they're gonna lie to you. Like
Right.
that's how things go. And I felt a lot of similarities in this book with that, where it was like, I'm just gonna believe what the person who told me, and I'm not gonna investigate in any way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. He's too tied up in all of that, and it's hard to find out where the middle ground is, right? Because even Sirius says there was a lot of back and forth, like there was a lot of like his side, James's side, Lily's side, like all these different things that kind of work together. He's like, you don't really have the full picture, but at the same time, I don't know how you look at James and you're not like, he was a bully. Like, he just was. He was elitist and he was, very jocular. And I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, anyway. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with him because Snape does see Harry and he thinks of Lily and he knows that he wants to protect Harry for Lily, but at the same time, like this person that he's been asked to protect, he just like despises
Whoa.
because it reminds him so much of James.
Yeah.
And then you wrote, the way Harry is always sent back to the Dursleys. Why would that be a safe place for him? It really makes absolutely no sense after all Harry has been through. He couldn't just go stay with Ron's family. It's not like he doesn't have money and can't contribute. So this goes back to the protection that is on number 4 Privet Lane. When Lily died, she put a protection on Harry, which saved him from Voldemort, and then I'm kind of forgetting the minutia of it, but Dumbledore was then able to use that love and make a protection with any other blood family of Harry's. So Petunia, her home, because of the blood relation and the magic bound in that, he has a protection from Voldemort at number 4 Privet Lane. Like Voldemort couldn't just go to number 4 Privet Lane and destroy it and kill Harry. Everything else around the house would be destroyed, but there's a protection of the threshold, kind of like we saw in Vampire Diaries the other week, where the vampire, they can't cross the threshold no matter what they do. Um,
It just felt to me like an easy out, of like, okay, this is why like Harry has to be with them. And it was like,
yeah,
okay, well, you could have made like a whole compound then and kept the Dursleys there in like their own separate part. And
yeah. I would guess that it's a plot convenience from Rowling. She needed to find a way to make Harry return there every year
yeah,
and threw
okay,
that in. I don't think it's rooted in anything super deep or anything like
got
that.
it. Okay.
That was a brutal moment when Sirius tells Harry, you're not much like James at all. Like James would have enjoyed the thrill of doing something he shouldn't have been doing. That would have been the fun of it for him. And this is after Sirius asks Harry, like, what if I turned into the dog and met you out at Hogsmeade or whatever? And Harry's like, that's really not a good idea or whatever. And Sirius is like, well, you're no fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and it's like, okay. And then okay, let's talk about Sirius. There's a lot of really interesting things tied up with Sirius in this book because that happens. Earlier in the book, Harry and Sirius have a moment at number 12 Grimmauld Place, and then at the end, when they're in the Ministry of Magic and they're like slinging spells around everywhere, Harry throws some sort of spell and it hits a Death Eater, and Sirius says, good job, James," and like keeps moving along. And it's like, oh, that was a Freudian slip. And then you get this moment with Hermione later on. I think it was actually right after this talk that you wrote down here. Um, and they're telling Sirius about the DA. And they're like, yeah, this is what we're doing. And Sirius is like, that's a great plan. Like, your dad would have loved this plan, and like all this stuff. And Hermione pulls Ron and Harry aside, and she's like, I don't know if we should do this anymore. And they're like, you're the one that came up with it. And she's like, yeah, but Sirius likes the idea of it. And they're like, and what's wrong with that? And she's like, don't you kind of feel like Sirius is living vicariously through us, and he's kind of like egging us on to do these more and more dangerous things because he wants to relive the glory days of, being in school and being like, one of the dangerous guys that got into trouble and stuff. Like, doesn't that kind of feel like what he's doing? Um, and I think that's such an interesting wrench to throw into things because it makes Sirius a more complicated character than just a family member that cares about Harry. It also shows that he's kind of doing the same thing that Snape is doing, where he can't quite let go of his glory day high school years. And we see this a lot with parents in the real world where they're like, my son's gonna play football or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on this?
I don't know. I mean, it's such a nuanced thing that it really all depends on like each situation, So it was hard for me to have an opinion on that.
Yeah, especially because we don't get much time to see how a lot of these things would have played out. Like if Sirius had kept like egging them on to do more and more dangerous
Yeah.
stuff, like we don't really see if it would have gotten them into a lot of trouble.
I think
Um,
we saw Sirius during his like soft era, you know?
right, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
like make assumptions on how he would have been or whatnot is just so far out of the context we've been given that it's
right.
it's too hard to even make a guess on it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just think it's so interesting to to put it into perspective that like James or not James, Sirius is just kind of like yeah, do it. Like, let's get into trouble. Like, find the Marauders map. Like, do this, do that. And it's like, I don't know. He is kind of the one that's not thinking super clearly. Like, even Snape tells him, when they're at number 12, Snape tells him, like, you've been kept at number 12 for a reason. Like, we
Yeah.
know that you're the wild card. We know that you're the one that's going to bring all of this crashing down if we let you. So,
Yeah.
you need to chill.
That's very
Um,
protagonist energy, though, you know?
yeah, for sure.
Everything revolves around you. I mean, it might sound cliche to say it, but it kind of does.
Yeah, yeah. And then you said what happened to Lily and Snape's relationship. We'll find out more in the next book for sure. But yeah, they kind of he starts getting involved with Death Eaters, and she's like, "Why are you hanging out with these people?" He's like, "Because they actually care about me." And she's like, "Well, I care about you. I don't want to see you like get involved with like these Death Eater people." And he's like, "You don't know what you're talking about." And that's kind of what happens with them. They kind of grow apart through that.
Makes sense.
And then the mirror that Harry didn't open. Oh my God. It's so sad. It's like if he had just remembered the mirror, remembered to use it.
Yeah. But like, why didn't Sirius say anything like, "Hey, open that gift I got you," and we don't have to like do this
Yeah.
bull crap anymore? Uh,
Right.
you know what I
Right.
mean? But like, really, I mean, it's just one of those like annoying plot points where it's like this is like a very simple thing that you put into the plot, so
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to me why.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, is it a plot point that was like forgotten,
And it was
or
plot hole filled.
yeah, or is it like, he was put in there specifically to make it even more tragic that Harry was so wrapped up in his own life during this year that he forgot to like open the gift and check the mirror and stuff like oh,
I absolutely believe that, but like it is one of my least favorite character trope or plot tropes where it's like, oh, here's a thing that was given to you at the beginning of the story that if you just utilized it or appreciated it, it would have like gotten rid of half of your problems.
right. Right.
It gets me angry. It gets me a little angry.
Yeah, for sure. Um I loved this scene at the very end of the book when Dumbledore, he's telling Harry like why he's been ignoring him this whole year, and Sirius had just died, and Dumbledore admits to being wrong. He's like, I should have trusted you with more information. He's like, and he kind of admits to the plan here. He's like, I've been trying to like he's like I like deeply care about you, and I've wanted you, after having this horrible childhood, I wanted you to have like a little bit of normalcy, and I kept pushing it off year after year. The first year I was like, surely he doesn't need to know when he's 11, and then 12 was only 1 year later, so surely he doesn't need to know when he's 12. 13, he had just met Sirius for the first time and things were really happy and good, and so he didn't want to disrupt that. And then 14, everything with the Goblet of Fire, he could have told him that year, but there was all this other stuff. And so like, plus he's like 14, like do you tell him when he's 14? And I love this like deliberating that Dumbledore had in his head, where he cares so much about his plan, but he also cares so much about Harry having the most normal life that he can until he has to die at Voldemort's feet.
Yeah.
Because as we find out in this book, there's going to have to be a brutal death, and it's likely going to be Harry. It's likely going to be because Harry is the last Horcrux. So Harry either has to, that what the prophecy says is Harry has to either kill Voldemort or Harry has to die, in which case then Voldemort can die. And so it's like Dumbledore knows that Harry is likely not going to be able to kill Voldemort, and so it'll likely be that Harry will die and then somebody else will kill Voldemort. And he's wanting Harry to have as much of a life as he possibly can up until that point. And it's such a beautiful scene. I love like reading through the scene in its entirety. I love like every sentence. Like I just love just like every single word in the chapter. It's so good.
No, it
Um
really is.
and then I love he lets Harry just like destroy his office. He lets him like throw chairs and like throw random things and like break things and kick things, and Dumbledore's just sitting there calmly like you deserve it. Like not like you deserve this, but like
This is
you
what I can give you.
yeah, this is all I can give you. Like I will let you like destroy my office. Um yeah, I love it. Um and then I love the quote when Harry's like talking about how he's feeling about Sirius's death. The fact that you can feel pain like this is your greatest strength. You care so much you feel as if you will bleed to death with it. What a great line.
Yeah.
What a great
Yeah.
line. Oh
Great.
my God, it's
Great
so
line.
good. And then yeah, you caught all the prophecy stuff, right? Like when he's kind of explaining the prophecy, like how it could have been Neville too.
Yeah, everything made sense once I read this book, and then I had watched the movie because I was like, all right, let me like try it from here. And I finished the whole movie series. It was the first time that I ever understood what was going on and what was at stake.
Yeah,
Total. This was the book.
right, right.
This was the book.
So Sirius dies, and we never find out what spell Bellatrix used on him. The movie says Avada Kedavra, but that's not technically canon. Because it said it was a red light, and Avada Kedavra is a green light. So we don't really know what spell she used to kill him.
Hmm.
But the beginning of chapter 36, it's right after Sirius dies, and I love this moment where it was like it says Harry was like watching the veil, like waiting for him to just like come back through it and to be like, here I am, and like rejoin the fight again. But he just wasn't, and like minutes went by, and Harry's just like staring at the veil, waiting for Sirius to come back. And it says Sirius had never kept him waiting before. Matter of fact, he was always eager to get to Harry whenever he could. And I think there's a longer part of the quote that was like Sirius loved Harry, and he always like did whatever he could to get to Harry whenever he needed to get to Harry. And like he wouldn't be keeping Harry like this. He wouldn't be playing this guessing game. And it was just like, oh, it was a brutal way to kind of show that Sirius is in fact gone. When Dumbledore's army gets busted, and the Fudge confronts Dumbledore, and he's like, "What is this?" And he's like, "No, it's not Harry Potter's army. Can't you see on the paper? It's Dumbledore's army. I'm the one that did this." And they're like, "Arrest him." And both in the book and the movie, he has the coolest exit where he's like, "Oh, you won't be arresting me today." And he like steps backwards and like spreads his
Yeah.
arms,
Yeah.
and then Fox like flies down and up and like flames, and he just like goes out in like this pillar of flame. And Kingsley Shacklebolt, I love this line. He's like, "You may not like him, Minister, but you've got to admit, Dumbledore's got style."
One of the best lines. Literally
One of
one
the
of
best
the
lines.
best lines.
It's so good. Oh, what did you think about Harry and Cho, this book?
I don't know. I mean, there was no one ever at any point that I was, oh, this is who he's going to be with. And like, I've always had the mindset of like, nobody you meet when you're a child is like the person that you think they are
Right.
when you grow up. So it was always difficult for me to read any of that to begin with. So, I mean, first they had like the whole Cho thing, and then it was like, here's Ron's sister, Ginny, so I went back and forth on all of that.
Sure. Yeah. I think his date with Cho was a complete disaster. I'm like, I wrote, he sucks at this. He meets up with Hermione, who tells him that he should have gone about bringing her up completely differently. Um, oh, and then I talk about the Rita Skeeter article, but I was just like, I was like, dude, like, how do you like? Even Hermione is like, why not be like, God, Hermione's such a drag. She's like making me go to this thing. Like, will you come with me and then we can go somewhere else after? But he brings Hermione up in like a way worse way.
Yeah,
And Cho's like, we'll just go spend time with her because Cho is already worried about him possibly liking Hermione.
just like Ron,
Um,
which comes
yeah,
again later.
yeah, right. I have I have a couple funny lines, especially when we see Arthur, he goes to St. Mungo's, and I thought it was kind of cool that it was like this random department store that they like go through in the middle of London to get to St. Mungo's. Um, and Harry asks Ron, he's like, are those doctors? And Ron says, doctors? Those muggle nutters that cut people up? No, they're healers. Arthur is trying like muggle remedies at the hospital, and Molly is so pissed, and he's trying to explain. He tells Molly, "Do you know what stitches are?" And she says, "It sounds like you've been trying to sew your skin back together, but even you wouldn't be that stupid." I just love I love how wizards have no idea about like biology or like anything that like a hospital would do.
Yeah.
Um, it's great. And then Lockhart is in St. Mungo's. We see him again after being like confounded or obliviated or whatever. And he's like still signing autographs and sending them out and everything. And they're like, they get like roped into like hanging out with Lockhart and like helping him sign autographs. That was great. Um, and then, what did you think of this scene with Neville and his parents? Did this make you feel a certain way?
I mean, I feel a lot of ways, like Neville's Harry Potter without the like celebrity.
Right.
He's going
Yeah.
through the exact same stuff that
Uh-huh.
Harry has. So it made me ugly cry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's this part is so brutal. Like Harry has been keeping Neville's secret for the past like two books. That he's got parents in St. Mungo's, and the grandma explains to everyone that his parents had their minds messed with by like Death Eaters after being tortured with the Crucio curse, and this moment when his mom and dad are kind of like waddling around the room like aimlessly, and his mom comes over and hands Neville like an empty candy wrapper, and Neville, I love this quote. Neville looked at them defiantly, daring them to laugh, but Harry didn't think he had ever seen anything less funny in his entire life. What a great quote. I love that so
Yeah.
much. And then Neville's grandma is like, she's given you like hundreds of these candy wrappers, just like throw that away or whatever. And Neville's like, okay. But then when she turns around, he he like quietly puts the candy wrapper back in his pocket and like looks at his mom. And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, that is brutal. That is brutal. I have this really great quote from Phineas Nigellus, which is the old Slytherin headmaster that like goes from frame to frame.
Hmm.
He goes back and forth between like number 12 Grimmauld Place and Hogwarts. And I wrote here, Phineas Nigellus gives Harry a great dose of humility. He says, "All you young people are so thoroughly convinced that you are right. Has it not occurred to you, my poor puffed up popinjay, that there might be an excellent reason why the headmaster of Hogwarts has not confided every detail of his plans to you? Have you never paused to realize that following Dumbledore's orders has never yet led you into harm? No, like all young people, you alone think you are the only ones to think and feel, to sense danger, that you alone are clever enough to know what the Dark Lord is planning." And I'm like, man, if that doesn't explain adolescence, I don't know what does. Like, that is such a just a perfect quote regarding that. It's like, because yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you remember, like when I was a teenager, I thought that all the adults were stupid, that I was the only sane one that could see things for what they are.
Mhm.
And, you know, I assumed that I had all the answers.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Yeah, it's just a great quote there.
Yeah.
Oh, I will tell no lies. Do you want to talk about that? Where the first time she like calls him into detention and she's
Oh,
like making him write with the quill and it like bleeds into his skin, like it cuts open
yeah,
his
yeah.
skin.
I mean, that was like really fucked up. And if it had been me, I would not have done it. So it was really,
Right.
if
But
that had
that
been me, I would have said, absolutely not. That is not what I'm going to do. I will not do that. Please go to
yeah.
your superiors that this is what I need to do.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what I've done.
yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. So, kind of final thoughts here. We are going to be going into the final two books and the final three movies where things get a lot more serious. This book kind of starts that, where we start to see things get a lot more grim, and especially with Dolores, like we were just talking about how awful she is, it kind of is the catalyst for the rest of the books getting progressively darker and darker and darker. Um, so if you've only seen the movies, then you will be astounded by the books. Sam, I cannot wait for you to read Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows because like I love those movies. I think the movies actually do like a really good job like this one did. But I think especially with Deathly Hallows, you'll be like, there is so much that was not in the
Yeah.
movies like at
Mhm.
all. Even with the movies being split into two movies, there it just does not cover
Mhm.
nearly everything. Um, and so I'm really really excited for you to read the next two.
Yes.
We'll be splitting Deathly Hallows into two episodes for the podcast. We'll be stopping essentially where the movie stops, like where Dobby dies, and then we'll be stopping our reading there and then discussing that, and then you know, going on to the next movie and finishing the last half of the book. So it'll kind of follow the way that the movies do it. But I could not be more excited about this. I'm so excited to get to the end. We've made really good progress through the series. I don't know what we're gonna do when this is
I
over.
know. I have ideas. I have some ideas.
Okay, okay.
It'll be
Yeah,
way better than Fourth Wing, but I do think my Hellbent ones were pretty good recommendations.
yes.
So, we'll go from there. We'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
I know. Yeah, we'll have to find either something new to go to or we
Yeah,
can do like Fantastic Beasts or
yeah.
something.
Or I had to go to. I mean, I thought my what do you call it? Will of the Many. That one
Yeah.
was top of the year to
Mm-hmm.
me. I will admit, Fourth Wing on the rereads for both of them, absolutely abominable, like abysmal, like terrible.
But it
I
was fun.
It was fun. It was
Yeah.
technically fun, but I regret having made those like my choices. You know what I mean? Like, they were like, these are what we're gonna read. Like, no, like
No.
they were not great. But I will have better choices in the future. I promise.
Well, yeah, we're gonna have to figure out what we're doing for next year because this one will wrap up and then we'll probably go into I
Yeah.
kind of wonder if Realm of the Elderlings will take the place of the Harry Potter episodes.
Yeah, we have like our Oathbringer, and then we're gonna have like the next book after Oathbringer, and then we're gonna have the new book and whatnot. And we have our New Year's stream with Holly. So like we have a lot of streams to bring us to at least the end of the year, if not
Right.
to January. So
Oh yeah, I mean we're not even so this is the other thing I was going to say is we're not even going to be doing any more Harry Potter until after the first of the year.
yeah.
So we will if you guys have only been watching these episodes, then yeah, we'll be back after the first of the year. I'm going to try to get this up before December 22nd. And on the reason why I say that is on December 22nd, we're going to be having our big live stream for the end of the year. We're going to be talking about our top 5 favorite books of the year, our top 5 like games and movies and TV shows, our biggest disappointments of the year, all sorts of stuff. So definitely tune into that. That'll be live on the 22nd, probably around like 1 o'clock Pacific time, sometime around there. But yeah, we do all sorts of stuff. We give each other, we get like presents and stuff. There's all sorts of crazy stuff we do. So tune in for that. Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. And thank you, Sam, for hanging in there. I know you're on the edge of your seat. You're like, I gotta go.
I'm in the bathroom so bad. It's like insane.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, it is time once again to go back to our house common rooms and prepare for the next episode of Potter Watch, where we'll be discussing Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Let us know down below in the comments what your favorite Harry Potter moments are, and I'm especially interested to see what you think of the differences between the movies and the books. I always love discussing that. Both from this and
like Katie did. Like Katie gave us great comments. We love we love them.
That was fantastic. Yeah. Follow Katie's example and give us in-depth comments like that. It was great. But you can give us comments not only on this book, but any of the books that come later. Like this is a spoiler free for all, so feel free to put whatever you like down there. Some of our other episodes, like Stormlight, are not that way. We ask that you don't put spoilers there, but for Harry Potter, go ahead. Again, you can reach out to us on Twitter, Discord, and Patreon, which are all linked down below in the description. We always love chatting with you guys, and also let us know if you would like to be on the show to discuss one of these books or movies. We'd love to have somebody on at some point that is just one of our viewers that enjoys Harry Potter a lot. But that's going to be it for us today. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And until next time, you may not like us, but you've got to admit that we've got style.
We do.